You're live.
Hello, Lab Coat Agents. It's Kevin Markarian, and we're live for another Real Labs. Today we have a very, very, very special guest, Shana Gates. She is an awesome, outstanding real estate professional, an individual agent, and she's actually from my hometown of Modesto, California. So I'm extra excited to be talking with Shana Gates. So Shana, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm really excited to be in this episode of Real Lab.
Awesome. So Shana, so you've been an agent for 13 years. You're like the beta queen. You've like beta tested every platform. You're obviously very successful on Ylopo, which many of us are familiar with in Lab Coat Agents. Tell us a little bit about like your background, kind of how you got started, how you've been able to achieve so much success.
Thanks again for having me on today's episode of Real Lab. I'm really passionate about helping other realtors be successful and, of course, studying the science of real estate. So just a little bit about me and my background and my experiences. I did grow up and start my career here 13 years ago in Central Valley, Northern California. And at that time, I like to call this BT, before technology. If you could remember, about 13 years ago when I started, we had nothing short of even a GPS. We had to use MapQuest. So I would say now that I became the beta and technology queen, before that I was known as the foreclosure princess, if you could call it. So in the beginning, when I started my real estate career, it was a lot like today's market, where we were having more homes sit on the market longer, and it was just started to make a shift. So that could be really scary as a new realtor. Even 13 years ago, I've experienced it myself. So I luckily, even though I was very young, I was 19 years old when I started my real estate career, I noticed the shift and I adapted to the change when a lot of people were getting pushed out of the market because they didn't know, as you remember, especially in our market, everything was upside down. We felt like our world turned upside down. Home values were turned upside down. And there's only a select few that was doing all the business. So a lot of people got out of the market. I was fortunate to see who was going to be successful in that next shift in the Prudential office that I worked at. And what I actually started my career doing, and it really looking back, I felt like I thought that there wasn't a lot of value in it, but it's really kept me as a full-time realtor for 13 years at the start was the foreclosure listing agent let me put my name writers on his foreclosure signs. And at the time, I would do that for free, take on some of the listing work for free, just to get the sign calls. And some of those sign calls led to one of my biggest clients that helped me learn how to flip homes. I've had 40 transactions with her off just a foreclosure sign call. So that's how I actually got started. And as you know, it was a really messy 6 years of foreclosures, a lot of volume, work with 3 different foreclosure listing agents. I've been everything from a buyer, taking sign calls, submitting offers. So about after 6 or 7 years of low-end, high-volume homes in the Central Valley, I decided something that sounded a little bit more glamorous at the end of that foreclosure market was to be an asset manager and actually be able to help agents and assign the foreclosures to them. So I had an experience moving to Los Angeles to be an asset manager. My family had moved there, and I just felt, like I said, it sounded more glamorous. I wanted to continue my foreclosure experience there. And what I did learn in that situation, as the first time and only time, I took a job that I actually took a pay cut, and it wasn't very fun. It was more work, and I didn't have the flexibility or freedom. So that was the first time in my career that I really realized the benefit of being a realtor and having your career work for you. After a year of that, I knew it wasn't time yet to come back to the Central Valley of California. Though I had investment properties and a lot of business here, it was starting to turn back into the traditional market. I decided I wanted to take the experience and jump full on to a luxury market that I've never worked in before. Went to Beverly Hills, worked in Beverly Hills for a year. And that's really the first time that I didn't have my foreclosures, my past clients, my referrals, my sphere of influence to fall back on. I knew nobody. So I jumped very deeply into what was the new, instead of foreclosure market, there was a tech boom going on, and it was the start of it. So it wasn't happening as rapidly as we see it today, But in those days, it was just now starting to be the Commission Inc., Tiger Lead type systems. There was more Google-based pay-per-click home search. So I really realized at a short time I had to surround myself again around the people that could help me with getting business in a market that I wasn't used to. And for me, that was doing the Google pay-per-click type of technology. After I learned that and really felt confident to jump into any market and the power of technology and exploring the science of real estate, there were some things that were pulling me back to my hometown market, which was my investments. The market shifted. I had too much business in this market, but I wasn't prepared to leave it because I didn't have a team in place that was handling the incoming business. So it forced me to come back to my home market. And since then, I didn't know how my business was going to be. So that same realtor that gave me that opportunity 8 years ago at this time, putting my name writer on his signs that helped me jumpstart my career, let me come into his office and train his brokerage of 30 plus realtors how to be successful using technology. And our platform at that time was Tiger Leads. So I trained over 30 to 40 realtors on sales training and also technology. And at this time, I was just exploring it myself for the first time. As I said, I went from the foreclosure queen to just now starting to be like a little bit into what's the science of real estate. And what I really experienced at that moment was it didn't matter if you were new to the area, which I had that experience in Beverly Hills. My top producing agents were the ones that were prospecting, and they're brand new realtors. It had nothing to do with experience. They're brand new realtors and they were killing it. So of course, tracking and measuring and being able to see the results and prove it to myself and to the realtors, especially in the new days of technology, and to my broker who's expensing this, I really had to do system and process and measurement and accountability. But I learned a lot of lessons throughout my career that brought me to rebuilding my own team this past few years. We work in Modesto. It's a second location from my broker. And the other lesson that I learned in that I don't want to be a manager and I didn't want to be a broker. Success is different levels to all people. And to me, it is helping other realtors be successful. I really enjoy studying the science of real estate and leveraging my time. I know that you did a real lab, and I won't use the same terminology as Mike, who says anything that you could do, he said, in your underwear, but I'm going to say remotely. So it gives me having a team and being able to explore the science of real estate and technology has been a tremendous amount of experience for me, in the sense of really feeling comfortable, no matter if you're new or you're experienced, or if you have those life events where you have to change markets, which you have done yourself. You just have the confidence that you're going to survive in this industry, no matter where you're at or what the market changes and shifts, but you have control over getting what you want out of this career if you just use a few simple strategies.
Wow, that was such an amazing kind of walkthrough of the last 13 years of your career, and you mentioned a lot in what you just said. And what I heard is a couple of things. Number one is the story of adaptation. You've been able to adapt to a lot of different things, a lot of different markets. Also, basically, you've been able to break into all these markets like on your own, right? And so when you talk about, it kind of sounds like you're talking about you have certain tools or systems that you use, or you're leveraging technology. Talk a little bit about leverage, and like what are those like key elements that have allowed you to be successful in multiple markets?
So there's a few things that I learned, like I said, that through my past experiences. But most recently, I would say like my biggest breakthroughs are things that allows me to be able to deep dive into really the science of real estate and the strategizing, is taking myself out of the day-to-day. And there's business coaches that will tell you that all the time, but I couldn't figure out how to do it until I had the circumstance in my life that I was changing markets. If I never took that opportunity to be an asset manager or go to a different market, I wouldn't be the same person I am today, because even after 7 years of being a realtor here, I never knew how to take myself out of the day-to-day, because I was so afraid that my clients want me, or what is the experience if I send another realtor? So that, until I absolutely had to work, run my business in Modesto from Los Angeles, and I couldn't be here physically, and I had to learn how to take myself day to day, my career took off. That was the first time that I really felt like for myself, my ROI, if I'm just systemizing and being able to deep dive into the science of real estate and strategizing and tracking results and being obsessed over the betas that I'm doing, then that really allowed me to fine point and to identify like how I want to run my business and what's important. So I took it a few steps further. When I started with my current franchise, our VP, and he does all our business planning. I've had coaches throughout the years, but he was the first one that told me, it's like, what you focus on for your business, that's what you're going to get. So in the past, it was all foreclosures or short sales or, just whatever, lead gen, whatever it came at me. And of course, with evolving technology, it was portal leads or home search leads. And what I felt like is, especially being in my market, as you know, it could be a high volume, but very low end. So what I wanted to deep dive into when I really took myself out of the day-to-day and started leveraging my team and exploring the science of real estate. And with that little piece that Imran gave me is not only identifying where your business and your ROI is coming from and what you focus on. There's a first year when I came back, all my past clients and referrals, all my business source end up being, all lead gen. And I was like, what if I'm focusing on lead gen, I still have a tremendous amount of past client referral base. So I actually did this, like I'd have a ROI tracking sheet, but I also like break down now my business in a graph every year. So I know, and part of my business planning is, what do I want to do to improve the type of business that I'm doing? And now this year, I've specifically wanted to take some of the technology now that I feel very comfortable in the betas that I'm doing, is I wanted to, instead of just, I've always been throughout the years, just want transaction versus volume. It's all about transaction for me as much as we could do. And when I took a step back last year and did my business planning and reflected of my career, what was important to me wasn't necessarily the amount of transactions. I wanted to help my team get higher volume in a low end market. So using strategy and just a few things, the first step for us was knowing where your business is coming from and understanding your purpose and where you want your business to be, especially right now ending, Q4, the end of the year. It's critical for business planning that you really identify that, because if you don't know, you're just going to take, like me for 7 years of my career, you're going to take whatever you could get that comes at you. And I was selling a lot of $100,000 houses. So this was the first year that I really felt like, our prices, of course, are comparable to the rest of the country, is we were able to increase just using little tweaks of technology and baiting the science of real estate. We were able to get our sales prices up.
I have a couple of questions there. So you talked about some tools that you're using. So what are like your beta testing some technology, different forms of technology? Can you share what some of those are? What you're seeing
Yes.
out there for agents to look for and to start implementing into their business?
Okay. So no matter if you're a new realtor, experienced realtor, if you have money to spend or if you don't, a few of the betas that I've done that really helped me understand some of this at a higher level was Anna put pressure on me doing part of these betas because I had to track it and measure it and give feedback. So it was more serious than even me spending my own dollar when I'm having to give this information back. So when I first came back and developed my team within the last 3 years, because I was a past client of TigerLead and Realtor.com, I was one of the first beta testers for YLOPO. And so YLOPO was the most innovative thing that I've ever experienced in the past 3 years, because I was no longer doing homes. It wasn't just home search and Google-based leads or the portal leads at whatever price points coming at me. Now with this beta, I had demographics. So I realized through the patterns of the demographics, based on the responses, things performed better and I had more control over my sales prices. So Ylopo was one of the betas that really was career changing for me, and being able to understand that you have control over the business that you want to work. So for example, veterans were the first closings we're getting. I was doing seller betas, but for some reason it was a lot easier and faster to convert seller leads if they were just a demographic, a simple tag that says homeowner, but they're a buyer. They're faster than just straight seller leads to me. If they were a new parent, they'd always say within 90 days. So that no matter what market you're in, there's a pattern of different demographics that are going to convert quicker. And so then when I really experienced that, I didn't like the first time home buyers as much because they're harder to qualify, things like that. But we loved the VA, we loved the homeowner. So then I felt like I had flavors of leads.
Question: how do you know? How can you determine a person who's a homeowner and also a buyer? Is that something that's done on the back end of Ylopo?
Ylopo or any home search site, but I don't know of anything else that's really giving you the demographics that they're a homeowner, unless you're doing Facebook marketing. So they're just on the home search site that I could see what they're looking on. I could see what they're looking at. So we just live in a realtor.com lead or a Zillow, we would just assume that we know that they're just a buyer. But with that slight demographic of Facebook marketing, we'll know that they're homeowners. So it changes up our conversion strategies.
Got it. So Ylopo is a good tool. What are any other tools that you can think of that are good for individual agents right now?
So there's a lot of things that individual agents, and strategies, I would say that there's a few things that you absolutely have to do if you're not going to spend a lot of money, and that's to have a CRM. You have to have a CRM. It still blows my mind how many realtors do not have a CRM, and they're just, they're going through the motions of doing open house, door knocking. They don't have anybody to call. They're sitting in the office, spending a lot of hours with not being able to be proactive. Those are the old, what I'm going to call again, like before technology days where we had a door knock and cold call people. Are you looking to buy or sell real estate? Those days are over. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you're experienced or if you're not, or if you're in a new market. There's just simple strategies as far as having a CRM and making sure that your spare, everybody that you know, all your Facebook friends, all your past clients, all your referrals, anybody that you come in contact with your open house is in a CRM. That way you could e-blast them, you could keep in contact with them, especially if they're a buyer. Even for me, when I first got into lead gen, it was because I had so many foreclosure sign calls and buyers that I needed to know what they're looking at. So I needed the home search tool more than I needed the leads. So I think that any realtor, even if they're not a team and they can't handle a lot of lead gen, they need a simple CRM that actually has the home search technology. So, and then that way, if they do want to do some of their own Facebook marketing and demographics and be more strategic, then they have the tools that they can. And that way, when you get to the office and you're prospecting, you actually have somebody to call or work off of. You're not just trying to reinvent the wheel every day.
Got it. And then as far as the CRM, what's the CRM that you use, and do you have any suggestions on
I've used all kinds of CRMs, and I understand that most brokerages offer a CRM. Even in the old school days of real estate, when I worked at Prudential, they had like an Agent Achieve or something like that. So I personally use Follow Up Boss with Ylopo for my listing alerts. And like I said, I've had portal and home search leads before, but I really love the Facebook technology of knowing your demographic.
Got it. And so we talked about you as an individual agent, and now you have a team. Can you tell us about the transition? Like, if someone is an individual agent right now, and we talk a lot about teams, and you're doing extremely well as both, like you're selling and you have a team, right? So correct. If someone who's an individual agent now, it sounds like Ylopo, it sounds like Follow Up Boss. Also, you mentioned earlier a clever idea where you said you posted the sign writers on Imran signs, and that's That's brilliant. And I think, do you think that's something that people can start utilizing now?
Yeah,
Still?
it was not Imran. I know he was in
sorry.
REO, but I do believe so. Like, if I know that the market's shifting right now, but I think that what we're going to start seeing, and correct me if you have any other thoughts on this, I feel like this is the market when I first started real estate. So what we're going to start seeing is a lot of listings sitting longer and a lot of really average realtors getting a lot of listings. I think we're going to start seeing a lot of sellers, but more days on the market. So it's going to be harder to get those listings sold. I think that before technology, that was the main source of my business, was sign calls. I see less sign calls now because everybody's going through the portals, they're seeing it online. So I'm not necessarily think that would work as well as the biggest thing that they could do. And so with my new realtors and rebuilding this team, I've been really blessed to have the opportunity to do some of these betas with team members doing it. So I've learned a lot from even my new realtors and what they do for business. And especially this year, because we want to strategize how to get our volume up versus transactions. And a lot of things, what they're doing is not rocket science at all, even though so we learned a good lesson because none of us used a sales dialer a few years ago. And we did that lab coat agent contest, the national contest. None of them had been on a sales dialer before. We ended up winning 4th place. But the biggest lesson to that was if we got on the phone and called 100 people, and it would take us about 1 hour, we could get about 5 appointments. And I know that, like, even Tom Ferry, you go back to those days of it's all about how many contacts, how many people, how many appointments. And it's true. It's nothing new, but if you do that, but you just have to have like a platform where you have somebody to call. So for us, it was nurtures or open houses. But what we started doing this year that was different than the past years, to really focus on, 1, breaking into new markets, and 2, getting our sales prices up. And we had to break into new markets to be able to get our sales prices up, basically. Mm-hmm. And so for us, we wanted to hit a lakeside community. We did it. We just had a closing. We wanted to hit a golf course. We're in the process of doing that. We wanted to get hit closer to the Bay Area. I had a new realtor who's a rock star. She's 2 years licensed. She won California Association Realtors Rising Star. She takes all of these things, and what she does is, it was a buyer who was a homeowner, and we got a listing that was $900,000. This is a 2-year-old realtor. You know how many years, Kevin, that it took me to sell a $900,000 in this market? So she was able to understand and change what she was doing and communicating to the client, knowing that they're moving to Stockton, but they had a $900,000 house to sell in Livermore. And the same thing in San Leandro. They're moving to Sacramento, but they had a listing. And I think that it's really our self-limiting beliefs, because before we would just say, like, well, we just work here. They would say, don't you work in Modesto? And you would refer it out. Well, why? It's only an hour away. It's tripling our sales price. Mm-hmm. So why, especially when, I'm not saying go there for a lower end deal, but if you have the opportunity and you know that they're a homeowner, why can't you take that listing 45 minutes to an hour away if it's tripling your sales price? Yeah. So it's just getting rid of those self-limiting beliefs, putting yourself out there a little bit further, but also strategizing definitely at the beginning of the year when you're doing your business planning. What kind of business do you want to do? Because for so many years, we're just doing all the volume that was coming at us. And when you really take a step back and put into place where your business is coming from and where you really want it to look like, and take a deep breath and actually strategize that, it's very possible. And it was almost easy. It was easier than I thought. I have broken other markets before that seemed a little bit harder without technology. Or this year has been a tremendous learning experience with my team, because like I said, we did do most was all higher end, even though it was a little bit less transactions than last year. But it gave me time also to strategize a little bit further and deeper. So now we're doing, Wailopa was our first beta that I really learned demographics and strategizing. And now I'm on I would say my 4th beta. The last 2, one was an AI call center, and the second one was an AI texting service, which that was a 2-month run. I really, I'm going to show you this.
Okay.
There's all this buzz about, artificial intelligence, AI, they're taking our jobs when technology gets ahead of society. And then, of course, all of these articles about artificial intelligence. So, like you said, you have to be like comfortable being uncomfortable when you're in these beta, especially when it's your name and your face versus my team. They'll laugh sometimes when something goes a little haywire. But this last beta that I was on was just strictly artificial intelligence, and it was a texting service. And on part of the beta, all the way up till the end, I said, absolutely, it works better than a call center or an ISA, in-house ISA, because it's so immediate. It was so immediate, and they were just really, but one thing so artificial intelligence, it wasn't bulletproof till I started getting some listing rockets or the seller beta, and they didn't know the difference between a buyer and a seller lead. So it went a little crazy for us. We turned that off. And now I'm doing my third beta that starts next week with a company out of San Francisco that is just mind blowing, the amount of data and the things that they could really tell about a client, what they're deep diving into, of when they're on their phone, when they're most active on their email, of course, we know when they're looking, but really taking that data, but using AI mixed with in-house call centers and ISA. So that will be an interesting beta for us as well to see like what works best.
Are you allowed to share the companies that you're working with on those betas?
I believe so.
Do you mind sharing those? I think
I'm not trying to give them a plug or anything, because I know that so one is the one that I'm about to start that is they're data scientists. They're mind blowing, out of San Francisco, and they're mixing artificial intelligence, but still with humans. The last one that I was on was not. It was just strictly artificial intelligence, and it worked until it didn't work. Then it was like Frankenstein. So the new one is Squad Voice.
Squad Voice, okay.
And the last one was called Homes, or like Structurally.
Structurally, okay.
And and then of course you're a YLOPO user, so we actually the same rockstar realtor Kayla from my team that I mentioned earlier. I mean, AI, it's scary to embrace all of these changes, but it's really critical, because as a realtor, no matter if you're solo or a team, you can't be everywhere at the same time. So the behavioral intelligence that YLOPO has, that was my first kind of beta of any type of artificial intelligence. So as you know, they have when they do certain search activity versus the old school way that we used to have to do it every time somebody returns site, do it ourselves. Now we actually, somebody that was a realtor.com 2 years on our system, we thought that they already purchased, they weren't interested anymore. They did a certain search activity. It let us know and sent the behavioral text on our behalf, letting them know that we don't mind, or sorry if we're bothering you, just want to check in with you regarding your home search. They responded. My realtor picked it right back up. And that's how we were able to close $1.2 million in sales off a behavioral response.
So those are the.
That was just a few months ago in the Bay Area. So that helped us. So it's to break into a new market that was on our list of places we wanted to work at the beginning. So it's really interesting to see how things are evolving so quickly at a rapid pace, because this was not something on my radar at the beginning of the year, that we would not only have to track our ROI and our lead sources or our demographics, but now I actually have to track, was artificial intelligence a part of this closing?
Got it. So that's YLOPO's behavioral texting that you're talking about, right?
Correct.
And you mentioned something earlier, and we're almost out of time, so I want to get these really important questions in. You mentioned something earlier where you said you're breaking into markets and it's not rocket science. And I thought that was profound. So what are some ways to do that then? You mentioned sales dialers, you mentioned YLOPO. What are some ways if somebody wants to break into a new market?
Okay. So this is for experienced realtors and new realtors. If you're spending money on lead gen or if you're not, just a few simple things that some of my realtors have done to really strategize of course, I've already touched on it. Make sure you're measuring where your business is coming from and what type of business you want to do when you're doing your business planning. That's the first and foremost, and have a CRM that you're able to work out of so you know where you're strategizing. 2 is open houses. We had I did one for Brino, a webinar. We had a huge success when you do have the opportunity to work the market that you want and the type of business that you want. What are you doing with that business to develop more business within that area? So a lot of people will do open houses, but are they really there, with their game face on? So we do Spacio, we do a contest. We make everybody register. So the first time when we got that $900,000 listing in Livermore, we had over 50 people through the door. We made them register. They couldn't even come in the door, and they were registering for a contest. We did a listing rocket, and we generated over 150 leads and got that house sold within the first week. So then that way, when a new house, even if it's not our listing, hit the market, we could call those 150 people and just let them know, I know that you're looking in this area, but another home just around the corner came on the market. Is this something you'd be interested in? Then we could e-blast them. So you're hitting them multiple touches, but it's just like we took a market we had no leads in, off one open house, generated over 150 people. Then we're e-blasting them, then we're calling them, then we're doing mailers to them.
How did you do? Okay, so what's your process on that real quick? And then what was the contest? Like, how did you get 150 people to come? Or about
50 were through our open house. So we made them register through Spacio, which I know that there's a lot of different technology sources, rather than having some agents don't even make their open house people register. And if they do, then they put them on a piece of paper, then they do nothing with them. Don't say you want to break into a new market or do this type of business, but then when you have the opportunity to do it. So even if that wasn't our listing, you could do a listing for somebody, or you could do an open house for somebody else. So even if you have no business at all, take the opportunity, do an open house in the specific market that you want to do. Make sure that everybody's registering, make sure you're advertising it. So for us, I spent $300 on a listing rocket through YLOPO. So if you're able and you have time, you could do it through yourself through Facebook. But we did a sponsored ad for $300. And like I said, our strategy is we listed on a Monday, no showings till the weekend. Everybody comes through with the open house. So we had 50 people come through, all got exported into our CRM. That way, when something else hits the market, even if they didn't buy that house, and then it just starts piling up every time you're doing an open house, every time you're doing a listing rocket. And then all of a sudden you went from no business in that market to selling a $900,000 listing and having a few hundred people that now you could email to them, and then you could call them.
Yeah,
well, all their information.
You just created an audience, and now you just became an expert, right? In
a market that you never worked in and that you just wanted to work in.
The market
so another strategy was the same rockstar realtor from my team. She took another area for us, as you know, Modesto. If we're going to hit $1 million deals or even upwards to it, it's either going to be in the Bay. We're going to have to drive a little bit further. It's going to be on a golf course. It's going to be a farm home. So we wanted to do more ranchettes. And how can we do that when that's not really the persona or the way that that's not what we do. So what she did is she found somebody else's listing that just hit the market, and she simply did a Facebook story and said, is anybody, well, not even with a specific house, is anybody looking for 3.5 acre ranchette? This just hit the market today, contact me. We found the buyer. We sent a postcard out. I stopped doing postcards for a little bit because I felt like, I get mixed results. Send the postcard out, and part of our multiple touches, we got a listing, a $699, a 4.5 acre ranchette horse property just around the corner. So then again, you take those properties, you do your just solds, definitely do your postcards. You never know what the results are going to be. And then you do the listing rocket, you do the open house, and then now you just generated an audience. And you have to do multiple touches, because one thing that I've learned with the change of the market, nothing stays the same. And I could say like some agents are like, postcards never work for me. Open houses never work for me. You just got to do multiple touches, because you don't know which one is going to lead to that next deal.
And you're doing those touches through Wailopo's rebrand or retargeting, right? On the
yes, retargeting, listing rockets.
Got it. And then what was the contest what was the actual contest that you mentioned earlier to get people to come?
We just do, well, that's for them to register. So when they register, then we will just have like a gift card and a little next home gift basket and just say like, here's our iPad, please register. So we have a count of who's coming in and you're going to be registering to win this gift basket. And we don't really have any pushback. Even if they're working with another realtor, they'll just put that. It's part of the questionnaire. And it almost feels like less abrasive because we're not asking the questions anymore. It's not feeling salesy. The questionnaire is right there on the iPad. And again, when you're in this tech world that we're in, it feels more natural to the consumer, somebody walking through on an iPad versus us having the sales conversation with them.
Totally. Okay, so we're almost out of time, and I want to get in a couple more questions real quick before we run out of time. This has been a great call. Thank you so much for sharing all this.
I really appreciate it.
Awesome information. So we talk about tipping points. People reach a certain tipping point in their career. The most successful people have had tipping points. Do you recall a time where you had, a moment or I guess a tipping point where things just kind of took you to another level?
I mean, I've shared my past 13 years career, and I feel like that a lot of my failures and success, sometimes it comes blindly. I didn't know that what I felt like I was working almost for free, putting my name right in those foreclosure days would lead to me staying in the business, either making or breaking my career. I would say a tipping point for me is when I moved to Los Angeles and I realized I had so much deals to be done here, but I physically wasn't here. It forced me to really evaluate my career and what my purpose is one, to help other realtors. I'm more purposeful if I'm training other realtors to be successful, something larger than myself. But secondly is we have all these natural disasters, of course, throughout the country, especially the last few years. We had a next home member, her house flooded, and I asked her, like, how did you survive that natural disaster? And I had even a listing burned down. Or you hear about people that are battling illnesses that are life-threatening or getting in accidents and they can't work, and it really takes them out of the business or like in a financial distress. So the biggest thing for me is just based on circumstances that I couldn't be here. I had to refocus that what's important to me is being able to be on vacation, take myself out of the day-to-day, work remotely, and make my business bulletproof, that no matter if I got sick today, if I got in an accident, if I had a natural disaster, will my business survive? And for a lot of realtors, I would say no. So if they don't feel good that day, like things aren't getting done. So anything you could do to take yourself out of day-to-day and leverage technology, don't be afraid of it, is a lot of people really think that you have to do your business either old school or new school. That you could really mix new school and old school ways to be successful, but just think more deeply about that is, if something happened to you, will your business survive? And for me, this leveraging technology and exploring the science of real estate gave me confidence to be in different markets, be more strategized to get to bigger price ranges and to be able to help more realtors, but also that I feel really confident that if I didn't work for the next 6 months and took myself out of the day-to-day physically, that I would still have a database and business to feed me for the next 5 years, just from what I've put together in the last 3 years.
Wow, really great. So one last question. If there's one thing that agents can do to make their business bulletproof, and you touched on a lot of those, but if there was one thing right now that they can do to make sure, I mean, we didn't even really talk about the market shift a lot in this conversation, but with the market shift happening and talking about bulletproof businesses, what's one thing right now that agents can do to make sure that their business is as close to bulletproof as can be in this transitioning market?
I would say that even if their intention's not to be a broker or like to do several transactions, to have some support system. So if that means if you can't right now build a team and have buyer's agents or lead gen or expense that, then for me, that was a partner. So when I first started my team again here, building it from scratch, I had a real estate partner that was experienced. She would do my TC and coordination, help me with some of the listing marketing, and I would just have a separate little split for it because I felt like, you just need one person that you could fall back on. So no matter what that compensation looks like, if you can't expense an assistant or ISA or, but I would say that like partner is critical because there's a lot of highs and lows in real estate. They're going to pick you up. If you're busy out on appointments, they're going to help you with leveraging your time, even if you're compensating them out of the close of the transaction. And of course, the TC, no brainer. But I would say even further than that, you need a realtor partner that you have some type of agreement with, even if it's just 25% or whatever, that out of the closing, that if they help assist when you get into those times. And I still leverage not only my team, but my TC, if I need something, given an offer written, things like that, that I have licensed help behind me, no matter if you're busy or slow or sick, no matter what happens, that you have somebody that could help you with your business.
So good. So good. And what you're talking about is sustainability, right? You're talking about sustainability. Shana, this has been such a great call. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to share your experiences with us. If someone wants to get a hold of you, maybe one last thing, someone wants to reach you or anything you'd like, last comments before we end the call?
Definitely. I feel like one of my biggest passions is helping other realtors be successful. I could help anybody save time or money through my experiences. I learned the hard way. So I spend at least an hour a day with realtors across the country, usually on the lead platforms or coaching system. But if you want to reach out to me through Facebook or email me, if there's anything as far as systems process that I can help you with, or have been caring about what your struggles are, I would love to help any of the realtors in the LCA community.
Awesome. And we'll post your information on the Facebook group. And if anyone wants to reach out to Shana, obviously a superstar in the industry and doing some great things. So please do that. And Shana, again, thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
I'll be talking with you.
Guys.
Take care. Bye, everyone.